Hello, everyone. Hopefully, you all are having a wonderful day so far. It's a little early for me here compared to all my other lives, but we are all set. I got a shower, so I should be good to go. Hopefully, the loud sounds outside don't interfere with this. But let's see if we can get TJ on. Go ahead and get started. Hello, everyone. There's a lot of you on here already. Hello.
Here we are. How's it going?
Good. How are you?
Yeah, going good, going good.
This is like new lighting for me. I'm not used to like actual sun coming through my window because I'm usually doing it much later in the day when the sun's on the other side. So I'm
It's
trying to
looking
like
good.
remove all these little magical glitter dots that are appearing.
How's
How's
your
your
day
day
gone so
going
far?
so far? That's great.
Same
Uh,
question.
Today it's been, I mean, I've only been awake for like 2 hours because I stayed up so late, but it's been a good start. I know that you've been awake for a lot longer.
Sorry, I got dropped out there. They pulled me out. I'm back in. I heard you have been awake for a few hours.
Yeah, I've only been awake for a few hours and it's been a pretty good start so far, but I know that you've pretty much had your day so far.
Yeah, have my day. It's been a good day today. Nice variety of different tasks, bit of speaking and things like that. So it's been good.
Awesome. So I'll let you introduce yourself so people know who you are and then we can jump into a discussion.
Awesome. So yeah, hi everyone. Thanks for coming and joining this conversation. My name is TJ, and I'm from the UK, live about an hour south of London, and spend my time training organizations in their mental health. So I basically developed a 10-step process that large groups of organizations go through to support their mind. And alongside that, I'm also launching a new organization next month, which is about individuals gaining the same sort of opportunity to get involved with these training programs.
That's awesome. So we've done very similar things then because I actually started with my coaching on one-on-one and then got hired through a company to do like leadership training for corporate employees. So it's
Fantastic. Yeah, very similar.
been something that I've been doing and absolutely loving as well.
Very cool.
So how did you get into that profession? Was that something that you decided a long time ago or is that something that you kind of came into
Yeah, it's a
later?
good question. I went to university to study psychology. I at college, which is in the UK, like 16 to 18 years old, had been studying psychology and had gone through some challenging things in my life and became quite interested about what could I do to help my mind? How could I help those around me that were having some of the similar difficulties? And then went to university, began connecting more and more with psychology.
Oh no. Gotta love technology. Let's see if we can get him added back in. I've been having some fun luck with my lives here recently when it comes to connecting. So let's see if we can get TJ back in. There we go.
I am so sorry. That is so annoying. I just
One fun
my
thing
my
about
iPhone
doing it
just turned
live.
itself off. It doesn't have like a I think it just put itself to sleep because I wasn't interacting with it. So I put it on never do that now. So we're back.
Perfect. So you're
Where do
talking
you want me
about
to kick off from?
you were talking about you studied psychology in college and then you
Yeah.
started connecting with people in the psychology world.
Yeah, for sure. So decided to at university then stay and do a master's in that world of psychology and clinical psychology and neuroscience. And was offered the opportunity to become a lecturer there, and that was just when like COVID, just about 4 months before COVID began kicking off. So started lecturing, and that was cool. Like, it was a new world, suddenly standing in front of people and chatting away about this topic. But I really quickly discovered that is something I love doing. And that was for a bit feeling like that was the path I was going to go down, continue the study and continue to teach. And then COVID hit, and I started really thinking about mental health and the experiences that people were having, and really wanted to start creating some innovative ideas around how we navigate in this modern world, exactly what's happening right now. And given academia, I love academia, I think it's fantastic, but obviously everything has to be far more researched and understood before you can discuss it. And I was really wanting to discuss like what's happening right now. And at that point, I was offered a chance to build a program for young women that were navigating cancer during COVID. So spent a good few months really studying that world to understand the impacts that was having on their mind, to hopefully give me some perspective and some useful ideas. And at that point began working with them. I still work with that audience now. I'm actually launching a new program with them in a couple of weeks, which is exciting. But I basically just saw the program seemed to connect with people. It seemed to be of value, and thought I could adapt it, meet some other audiences. So I started moving into corporate spaces, bigger companies, startups, younger people, that kind of thing. And then have had a fantastic year of connecting with a lot of people since then.
Yeah, and I think that I love hearing all the stuff that people work on like the back end when it comes to the fact that you also were hosting rooms in Clubhouse like on a pretty regular basis. And I think sometimes people jump into Clubhouse and just assume like people are just like jumping in there to talk, and there's not always a lot of background to kind of back you up on the work that you're doing on Clubhouse. Like some
True.
Clubhouse rooms I've jumped into and I'm like, please stop talking. Don't say you're a professional. This is not good advice. But like your rooms were always really, really nice. So like I had turned on the notifications and was like getting notified when you were starting your rooms. And I always
Oh,
thought those were
wonderful.
like really, really good.
Yeah, I really loved Clubhouse. I still connect with it a bit now, but for 6 months, I think when lockdown was really intense and everyone was seeking that opportunity to connect with other people, it was awesome. I gained a lot of good energy of having all those conversations with everyone about this topic.
Yeah, I the first room that I joined, it's really funny to talk about like mental health and social media and technology and how all of that impacts our mental health. Because
Mm.
like on one side, I'm an influencer online, I get paid for it. So it's like I want people to watch my content, but I also am on the backside of like people's mental health is like being thrown down the storm drain because we now see people getting validation from likes and comments and comparison to other people online. And
Hmm.
it's interesting because I started school in psychology and switched over to architecture. um,
Okay,
I didn't
very
have the
cool.
right passions behind psychology, and then when I got to like biopsychology, like my brain was not connecting with it.
Yeah.
But now I pulled back and started doing life coaching. So that psychology degree would have probably come in handy. But
Yeah, I'm sure it
looking
still
at
has.
social media, it's been very interesting to kind of watch because as I work with clients, you hear people like I work with musicians who they almost feel like their work has no worth if it doesn't have thousands of like listens. And I'm like, no, please don't let your mental health attach to that. Allow yourself to connect to the work and creative part of your job. And then once you release it into the world, let it go. Don't
Mm.
let your mental health attach to that, because if numbers were what was supposed to make us happy, like many of us would die.
Yes, that is true, for sure. It's a huge conversation, the social media thing. What's
Yeah.
your experience of it like as you're watching your followers going up and down and things like that?
I've had to I had to adjust and learn. I
Okay.
I was definitely seeing myself be pulled down and get way too wrapped up in numbers. Thankfully, I have really, really good friends that know me really well, and they pull me back to reality very quickly when they see me doing
Awesome.
that. because like as you jump into it as a business and you get paid for it, you do want to know what you're doing that's like helping you succeed versus what you're doing that's pulling you backwards.
For
But
sure.
it's really hard to look at the numbers and figure that out, and you can become too obsessed with the numbers to where now you're not even enjoying the content you're creating. So I had to pull myself back multiple times and say, hey, it's okay. Like my YouTube channel plateaued for about 4 years. Like I hit like 1,000 followers and I sat there like it didn't go anywhere, and I was pumping content out, and then I started believing that I needed to change who I was to grow more. And that became like
Wow.
a slip and slide that I had to jump off of. And once I decided to be my authentic self and like my light just shine through, like that's when I started growing again. And I think it's because I was falling away from who I really was, because people could see that it wasn't me and I wasn't putting out my best self.
Yeah, 100%. It's interesting to acknowledge. I can imagine many people feel as though they have to portray themselves as someone that's not necessarily completely aligned to who they are, but someone that they would perceive that others would align with. And it's very easy to jump into those headspaces. And yeah, saying that as you went back to more authenticity, more just like speaking what you felt was truthful to you, I think people, it resonates with people. We have this like intuitive dial in our system that can kind of feel like, is that really what someone feels and things like that? And yeah, I think people connect with it, whatever it is that we're sharing. I think people want truthful, authentic stuff.
Yeah. I always tell people like we see certain people succeeding in life. We see people who are popular and surrounded by tons of people, and people are just attracted to them. And a lot of times we'll sit there and say, oh my gosh, if I'm more like that person, I will see the same results. But what we're not realizing is that person has tapped into their authentic self, the person that they really are, and that energy is going out and attracting people.
Mm.
So instead of me trying to pretend to be this person over here that's showing tons of success in what they're doing, I need to tap into who I really am and just like know myself and let that energy attract people. Because at the end of the day, if you're faking who you are and you've attracted a large crowd, like you will be exhausted very quickly because it's an act that's hard to keep up.
100%. So important to find that state of alignment. And I think many people in this kind of unusual modern world we're living in, where there's so much like ideas of what we can be and who we are and stuff, I think some people do feel so misaligned. And the more you can just connect with being who you are as a person, I think the better your mental health begins to feel, whether you're posting content and wanting to connect with others or just personally in yourself.
Yeah. And one thing that I could not imagine is how young people are now and being put in front of large audiences because of social media and the mistakes people make as youth on social platforms and the now like impact it has on their life. Because growing up for me, like if there was a bully, it was like a bully at school. And yeah,
Yeah.
they said say something that like made my feelings like not feel so great. But then now if you mess up or do something, someone can share it, and now you it's possible to have millions and millions of people sending you messages. And I feel like that social impact on the youth is something that isn't really focused on. I was talking to a couple teachers on my positive talks, and they were talking about how some schools, some teachers ignore social media as if it doesn't exist. But I think it's so important to realize that it exists, it's here, it's reality. You have to acknowledge that it's there. Otherwise, kids are going to navigate it all on their own. And social media is not like a responsible parent guiding you through life. Like social media is like that bad little devil on your shoulder that's like, do it, post it. Yes, you'll get more likes, do it. And I think that that can really send some kids in a wrong direction for sure.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I just think because obviously mental health has progressively become a lot worse in the last 10 to 20 years. The numbers are going up like crazy. And then even if you look at COVID in the last few years, obviously you have the addition of the pandemic, which would create mental health difficulty. But in general, one of the huge connections with COVID is so much time on these devices, like the change in screen time, the addiction we have to our phones and computers and all these different things has changed massively. And I think it just needs to be recognized, the difficulty it creates for the mind. Because I think social media is cool. I don't think it's going to go anywhere. I think it's going to be an intricate part of society for many decades to come. But not acknowledging that social media has boomed and mental health has gone into difficulty, I just feel like it doesn't make sense. Like, I feel like the more we acknowledge it and recognize it, then the more we can collectively find a solution of how kids, I'm not sure whether kids should necessarily be on it, but how young people interact with it and use it and understand how it validates them and how to also validate themselves and not always seek it from others. I think it's something that needs to be a way bigger conversation, because when you're in those teenage years, like I just about missed it. I was about 17 when Instagram started being a thing and I was posting a bit, but it wasn't like some giant platform where everyone was wondering how everyone was doing and followers and likes. And even when I was going through my teenage years, it's still a nerve-wracking experience when you're like 13, 14, trying to figure yourself out. Suddenly you're like interested in other people and you're like, what do I do with this thought? And now it's like, it's already nerve-wracking being a teenager, but now we'll put the whole thing on the internet and observe how everyone else does it and what everyone thinks of you. And it's like, that is going to send a lot of young people that aren't super secure, and who really is that secure, into a state of difficulty. And yeah, conversations like this, these are the ways in which I feel like we could go on a path to finding some cool ideas.
Yeah, I personally think that like school systems, like in the beginning, because we don't like when it comes to trauma, it can be passed down from generation to generation. So if I'm
Yeah, for sure.
traumatized and I don't work on myself, I can pass it down to my kids unknowingly because I haven't dealt with my trauma. I don't know how to not pass it down. And I feel like in school systems, it would be great if mental health was something that we focused on at the early stages, teaching children healthier ways to deal with things. Like, yeah, history's great, yeah, math's great, but I feel like all of that doesn't prepare anyone for life in general. Because, like, I think the base needs to be talking about like acceptance, love, like understanding. Different doesn't mean bad, different means different in a lot of different good ways. And just teaching that type of stuff and also create children that have critical thinking minds,
Yeah,
because in today's world, like you can literally find whatever you want to affirm whatever thought process you have. That doesn't
true.
necessarily mean it's correct, but it's impossible for people to communicate with each other if they have different mindsets these days. Because, I mean, even social media has done this to us where, like, social media is like here in the United States, they're like, oh, this person's conservative, oh, this person's liberal. The ads, the like news articles, everything's completely different. And then
Mm,
you wonder why, when people have conversations about things that are already kind of challenging to speak about, they've read completely different articles. It's not like they read the same book and they're having an argument of like what characters were thinking. Like it's completely different articles on the same story to where people can't even communicate with each other. And social media and technology is to blame for people not being able to have the same information. And I'm like, yeah, I went through mine and turned off all of that stuff so that mine is less catered to me and more just kind of information being put at me to where I can be like, huh, I want to do a little bit more research here and dig a little deeper.
nice.
But most people, they read that first article and that's their new formed opinion. And I think that it requires a little bit deeper thought than that.
Yeah, wow. Those are wise words, mate. That was very true, because it is true. Like anything you do believe, specifically, I don't know if you spend any time on TikTok, but obviously that algorithm learns you, and just whatever you want to believe, it's going to reaffirm it straight back to you. And it does then feel like you're so equipped within an argument, within like a discussion or a conversation, whatever it could be perceived as, to navigate and think, yeah, I must be right. And then someone else has had their whole feed. And I think this is new, this level of information coming into us. And we are getting so much like political information coming at us and news and health. And I think it's underestimated how much this is affecting our mental health, trying to like decipher what is it that I should believe? Because we all just want to believe something. That's just what humans have wanted to do for hundreds of thousands of years as we created all of our ideas and stuff. And navigating your way through it is chaos now. It's just like, what do I actually believe? You mentioned there that you turn some stuff off so you can feel like the feed's a bit more objective. What was a kind of process like that? Because that sounds like a cool idea.
Yeah, so when you go into social media platforms and deeper into the settings,
Yeah.
depending on what you've liked and viewed and followed, it decides which political party you would be most like attached to, what religion you are most attached to,
Okay.
and it will start feeding you pretty much anything that is related to that. So it's like, because you liked this and every other liberal liked this, here's all the liberal news that you'll need for today. And
Okay.
now I turn those off and I'm getting stuff from both sides. There are still things that I look at and I'm like, oh, I don't want to read that, but at
Yeah.
least I'm seeing it and it's not something that I'm completely oblivious to. And I think that
Yeah.
that's helped me. Also, I lived in a very conservative area with very liberal, open-minded views. And I learned to be able to communicate and understand the people I work with on a daily basis. I had to listen and understand. So instead of pushing my views or trying to educate people on the way I felt, I just ask questions. I would rather learn more about everyone around me than teach them how I'm feeling, because every piece of information they give me about themselves helps me understand my environment, which helps me
Mm.
make my choices for myself. And if it comes to a point of where I need to ask for their support, I know them to where I can be like, hey, like, you say you're a family person, you say your core values are this, like, my core values are very similar, because a lot of times people look on the surface level and see differences, but the core
Mm-hmm.
values are the same. And sometimes you can use your core values and similarities there to kind of get people to understand perspectives that are different than their own. And I've
That's
I've had a
true.
lot of success. I realize that the monsters that sometimes we create in our heads aren't really monsters. They're just good people that on the surface have different opinions than our own. But like the core values of people in life, like you were saying, people just want to like have an idea or an understanding of the world. Uh, Everyone's doing that. It's just we're all getting hit with different information, and that's forming our different journeys. And at the end
Mm.
of the day, like a conservative grandmother and a liberal grandmother are still grandmothers that love their grandchildren. They're still your neighbor that brings cookies to whatever event. Like, they're still people. And I think a lot of times people forget that part. And that makes it easier to like segregate and make other people considered different or othered. And I think that the more we kind of look at the deeper root of who we are as individuals, like the less scary people become.
Yeah. Fair. It's really, really interesting. And yeah, as I hear it, because I've just observed this so much, this division of opinions and perspectives over these last few years. I feel like it's really escalated, and I don't know if it's how the feeds have changed or more time on it, but it is really tough, and it's such an unusual experience having this technology created that ironically is connecting everyone together whilst literally disconnecting everyone as well. And like even within families, there's now different perspectives on all these different things, and it's like, wow, we're going to have to figure out a way to manage our way through this technology and all these new things, because it's only going to come faster and faster. And these conversations, yeah, they're important.
Yeah, one thing that I loved about Clubhouse was people were joining from all over the world.
Yeah.
And you'd hear news about something in another country, in your country, on your news television, and it's very, very like guiding to where they want you to see. But then when you speak to people from those countries, like their stories, like fill in all those blanks that the media kind of leaves out to kind of project whatever story they want you to hear. And I was just like, I was loving Clubhouse just because I was getting to learn and ask questions about different parts of the world. Because I think
Yeah.
that if we all like talked about things that we did successfully, like how did you here in this country successfully do this or bring people together or remove this like horrible thing from your country, like talking about that type of stuff. I think you have to go into it with the best intentions and continue those like guidelines and intentions the whole time, because if you don't, it can become chaos again. But I think
Yeah.
it's so cool to like be able to talk to other people in other countries. Like, how do people handle homeless people where you are? Like, what
Yeah,
are some
true.
success stories here that we could do here? Because I see them online, but a lot of them don't like explain what they're doing. But when you can connect with people and say, hey, what's your success story? And you hear it and you're like, oh my gosh, we don't have anything like that here where I live. That would be an amazing thing. You could start creating change and using social media for good, but you have to go in there with that full intention, and you have to have that strong push to keep it that way. Because I've watched new social platforms open like Clubhouse that in the beginning I was just like loving it, and then I watched it just kind of fall off the deep end, and then I'm like, I'm out, done, too much
Yeah.
stress for me today.
Yeah, I hear you. It's interesting how we're going to navigate it. I feel like I'm curious on your thoughts on this, but because we have this whole world of social media, there's this desire to all help one another that I think humans instinctively have in our brains. And when you look at the entirety of the animal kingdom or something that's been here for ages, all of the animals instinctively know how to help all the other animals preserve themselves, and they instinctively know how to collectively survive, basically. And I think humans want that as well. I think we all want to help each other. But with all these platforms now and stuff, there is this balance between wanting to have everyone grow and help each other and have a great time and like each other's things and comments and support, but also this like intrinsic desire to also be better than others. And then there's this competitive nature of the conversation whereby I think it is kind of pinning us all against each other as well. And how we find that balance whereby we just want to focus on collectively all rising together, not necessarily in followers and all that kind of stuff, but just having conversations that are of value to people. I think when you say things like we should be educated at schools in how to use these things, if that was the kind of conversation where kids were like, oh, so this social media is going to be something that comes in your life, and these are the kind of ways in which you could use it, these are the ways to maybe avoid using it, that would be some pretty valuable stuff.
Yeah, I think that the question that people have to ask themselves is like, how are you operating in life? Like, are you operating out of fear? Like, are
Mm-hmm.
you navigating through the world fearful of loss, fearful of not succeeding? Because I think fear causes us to do things that are like very negative, impacting to everyone around us. Like, for me personally, my growth and where I've come in life, I've been very proud of myself for not stepping on other people, abusing other people. Like, I've come to where I am today by helping everyone around me. I've never really been the type of person that's like, oh my gosh, like I've got to get this promotion. I better make this person look bad so that I look
Mm-hmm.
good. Um,
Yeah.
I'm the type of person where I'm like, if it's meant to be mine, if I am supposed to have this right now, like I will have it. And I think that training people's brains to think that way, because like with social media, like I don't compare myself to other people to, because I think that that can become a very toxic place. I look at other people and like their platform's really successful. I wonder what the core values that drive them. I want to know why they are successful, because they're doing
Mm-hmm.
something right. I'm not sitting there saying, "Oh, look at them posting this," and like comparing myself and attacking their platform. I'm looking at everyone else as something I can learn from. And I think that the more people get into that state of mind, but I think all the way down to like the human instinct of like fight or flight,
Yeah,
like that instinct gets us a lot. And
it
I
does.
think that we have to always self-examine and ask ourselves, like, are you operating out of fear? Or are you operating from a clear state of mind of understanding, like, did I do enough research? Did I ask myself enough questions to know that I'm navigating well through life? And honestly, when I stopped asking other people, because I did it all the time, I was like, do you think I'm successful? Do you think I'm smart? Do you think I'm this?
Yeah.
And I stopped and I was like, I am smart. I can be successful at what I want to do. I just have to figure out how to do this. And when I flipped to look inward, when I started navigating the world, I knew myself so well that I was like, nope, that's going to be bad for me. That's going to like really tap into my mental health in a bad way. We're going this way. And I think the more I learned about myself, the easier it was to kind of navigate. And then I could kind of see through other people's like masks and things that they put on to kind of hide that they're operating through fear or anger or any of those other things that might negatively impact their journey.
Yeah, that's huge what you're sharing there. Developing, as you say, getting to know yourself and developing that kind of intuitive relationship with your whole system is so important because nowadays we spend so much of our time just looking outwards, basically. What's everyone else doing for their work and their fun and their social lives and their families? It's always looking out and then just kind of trying to place ourselves into the picture of where do I fit in this like hierarchical system that I'm like placing myself in. And the more time you spend, as you say, on your own, listening to yourself, listening to your own inner guidance and how you navigate everything, emotional difficulty, talking to yourself, exercise, all these different things that are important contributing factors. These systems we wander around and they're so clever on their own. And I think we get so lost in wondering what's out there and how do I figure out how to align with what's out there. And in the process, completely misalign with our own system. And then many of us then start going into headspaces where we're like, I'm feeling anxious or worried or stressed or overwhelmed. And often it's your whole body and like mind just trying to say something is misaligned. Please come back to me. Help me first. And then I can help your mind to feel better. So yeah, wonderful to hear you share that.
Yeah, I think that people need to realize that social media and technology, they are designed to keep you on them. Like they
That's true.
literally
And it works
builds
pretty
them.
well.
They don't build them so that you will put them down and like say, I don't need social media today. Like they like the likes and everything, like it's all built to make you go, oh my God, I need to check. I've got to make sure there's new comments. I've got to, like they're built for that. And I went into a room on Clubhouse where they were talking about dating apps and they were like, they're built to be addictive. They're not built for you to find a partner and delete the app. Like they don't want you to delete the app. They want you to forever be swiping left or right or talking to random people. Like they talked about Tinder and
Mm-hmm.
how like the percentage of people that spend swiping versus the percentage of people that have conversations with the people they've matched with, and it's 80% of people are swiping and then the other 20% is the conversation with people they've matched with.
Wow.
And
Jeez,
I'm
that's a
like,
big number.
that's insane. Like the human brain is constantly wanting to just swipe back and forth because it's easy. It's not hard work. Um, the conversation part is where like people, that's work. That requires you to actually emotionally connect with someone, or at least connect in a deeper way than just the swiping right or left. And people get more validation when they see like, oh, you made a match. They get excited
Mm.
about the match, so they want to keep doing more. It's not about connecting and having conversation and finding a date. It's about that validation that people get from the dating apps. And that's why like they say so many people will start dating and continue to be on the app because it's like that little validation, just like the likes and comments on all the other social platforms. And I was just like, this And then Clubhouse jumped into the same boat. I remember when Clubhouse wasn't a platform yet and they were reaching out to influencers. And when they talked to me about it, they're like, and you won't see the numbers, there won't be any numbers. And I was like, we'll see how that goes. That sounds great. But I don't think people will attach to it as well. And then when I finally got an invite to Clubhouse, I was like, oh, look at these little numbers right here telling you how many people follow you, because somehow that validates whether or not someone is worthy of your attention. And I'm
Yeah.
like, if we could only remove that, because numbers don't mean anything in that sense.
Oh, it's so true. And there has now become this like instinctive part of our brains that utilizes that number to add credibility to what someone has to say. And there might be some very wise people with like 50 followers that have just no motive for that, but might have some big messages to share. And we are in this world of constantly seeking validation. And I think one of the difficulties is because we are now in all of these sites, whether you're using like an app like Tinder and you're validating yourself against one another and wondering how many matches you're getting, or if you're doing the same thing, either posting on social media and seeing if people acknowledge and like and follow you, or just going through it and validating your experience of life compared to others. So it could be like, am I having more fun than this person? Am I better looking than this person? It's like this world of trying to find a way to validate what's in our heads. And it's something I think is so important we recognize, because if we constantly seek in life for external validation, effectively, all of those things are, if we're always on this journey to externally validating our minds to make ourselves feel better, whether it's through following online or getting liked or money or cars or fame, whatever it may be, if you're on that journey to always wanting things outside of yourself, there is no upper limit. There's no moment where you're like, okay, so now I am good looking enough, or now I have enough followers, or now my car is nice enough. There is no end goal. And it leaves you on this constant journey of, oh, what could I get next? What could I get next? Which really makes it hard to feel just a nice, like calm, peaceful experience. So developing the ability where you have a relationship with yourself, as you said, getting more connected with yourself, where you actually internally validate yourself for what you do. So when you go for a run or eat some good food or do some meditation or get off your phone for a bit and spend some time with your friends, when you do these things, if you just say to yourself, TJ, yeah, it's good you did that, well done for doing that, and you develop this narrative whereby you have the ability to validate yourself rather than the outside world validating you, it can make a massive difference to the experience that you're having.
Yeah, and I think it's important for people to realize that when you start to make that breakthrough in life, people don't like that. People who are stuck in that old cycle and old way of thinking, they don't like seeing you not need their validation anymore. People
True.
that world wants to keep you there, and sometimes you have to break free from that. Sometimes it means not communicating with certain people, pulling away from that, and removing yourself from social media. And social media apps, I did like a little detox, and I started getting emails from them, and they're like, hey, we haven't seen you on Facebook lately. And I'm like, stop, like, you leave me alone. Like, I'm trying to remove this from my life right now. And like, you have to realize that sometimes you have to break free of it. And I don't say burn bridges, but there will be a time where this life is going to try to pull you back, and it's going to seem like you're ending friendships and stuff like that. But what it's really doing is just trying to pull you back here. Whereas if you stay here long enough and shine over here, what you will see is your friends and your loved ones are going to slowly make that move to you, because they're going to see you over here thriving, and then they're going to want to know why. Don't keep getting pulled back and feeling like you have to drag them out, because the energy you have over here is so high that it will naturally pull the people that love you with you. You just have to really move into this headspace, because if you stay in the middle, you will get sucked back in, because all of this is
True.
literally built to do that. And it's not easy to pull yourself out of that mindset. And your self validation is so important. And I always tell people, like, when it comes to my social platforms, I'm going to use them, like their algorithms and everything that they've got set up. against them as a way to successfully do what I want to do. So I have to know how they function, but I'm not letting them suck me in. I am aware of what they're doing. And once you have that awareness, you still have to play by the game of life, but use it to your advantage and use it to do good, because
Mm.
all things can be used as like a tool or a weapon. You just have to decide which one you want to use it for.
Yeah, 100%. That does sum it up at the end. It either can be a tool or a weapon, and I think that's how we have to perceive like all of this experience of the new technology, whether it's like the whole new way that we're all working, getting so immersed in this tech, like really acknowledging the difficulties as you're sharing that it can present, and being aware of them and learning how to use it in a tactical and an intentional way. Of course, at times you're going to sit on the sofa and mindlessly scroll around on it. Like it's just inevitable. So I don't think we have to be like super diligent, like a military man with our devices. But having some relationship where you start thinking, yeah, I'm going to use this tech in an intentional way and actually consider how it makes me feel when I use it, if I spend too long on it. Like, I don't know if you've ever had a day where you've like maybe aren't working, it could be a weekend, or like you've had some alcohol and you're hungover, whatever it may be. And you spend like a lot of time on your phone. Like you just sort of sit there, TV on, and you start scrolling around on it. And when you spend a long time on your phone, it'll get more and more addictive throughout that day. And then when you try and just like escape from it for a bit, go outside or cook some food, you find this like cooling from your system. Like, where's the phone? I feel uncomfortable without the phone. I need it. It's making me feel nervous. What's going on? Can I see any more stories, even though I've checked them all 7,000 times today? It's like you get this urge for it, and that's just because that's when we just completely relinquish control and start overusing it, and that really plays with us. So just having a relationship whereby you use it and then you take a little bit of space from it, use it, take a little bit of space from it, it's worth our time. And tech's only going to get more and more immersive. We'll be having this conversation in like 5 or 10 years, probably like inside the same room somehow. So we've got
Yeah.
to figure out how to use it in a good way.
Yeah, I personally, because Apple allows you to see like how many hours you've spent on your phone, like every
Yeah.
Sunday it lets me know. I had a large number, and I was like,
Same.
I'm on social media, so like, and Clubhouse was, I literally had it on in the background, just playing while I worked, and so my numbers were higher than usual, and I was just like, okay, this week I'm gonna try to get it down 5 hours. I want to cut 5 hours out of my week of being on
Nice.
my phone. And it took like sticking my phone in a drawer of my desk at work instead of on
Yeah.
my like desk on top where I could see the screen light up every time. And then it took coming home from work and sitting it in my bedroom and going back down to like the living space and being with my family. And I was like, I cut it way down. I cut it like by 15 hours instead of just 5. And I was just
Nice.
like, wow, I literally just did a small adjustment and it wiped a whole 15 hours off of my week of usage for my phone. And I was like, that's pretty good. I think that it
That's
is
awesome.
possible. You just have to go into it with the intentions of it. And the way I also do it is like asking myself, like, what are things that I'm saying I don't have time to do? Like working out at the gym. That was a big one
Yeah.
for me. I was like, I don't have time for it. I literally work this many hours. I do this and this and this. And then when I look at how long I was on my phone, I was like, that's plenty of time for the gym. I don't have any excuses here. And just replacing that time with things that I actually say I wish I had time to do, because we all are granted enough time. It's just what we use. And I think social media has definitely blinded us to how much time we actually mindlessly scroll through our phones.
Yeah. So true. And good, that idea of where could you, if you look at the numbers, where could you have spent the time is a good question to ask yourself. I have this kind of tech health testing process, and it gives people an opportunity to learn all about how this tech affects them. And it's also very interesting for me because I can look through it and understand like how people are using these phones, because it gives me more insight into it. And when you're saying how much time we mindlessly scrolling, I have a range of ages that are doing it, from like 14 all the way up to like 50 people in their 50s. And a lot of the the young people taking it in their teenage years, I've seen numbers that are like 12 to 14 hours a day average screen time, which is like that's a whole day. I don't even know if I'm awake for 14 hours. I probably am. Yes, I would be. I'm probably awake for like 16. So that's like nearly a whole day just in the phone. And I just think it's like we have no idea what that is going to do to a mind. Like it's a brand new concept. We've been on this planet for hundreds of thousands of years. It's only these last like 4 or 5 years of teenagers that have experienced it. And yeah, I think things like putting that with the screen time, you can add like a widget to your phone. So I don't know if you've ever added widgets, but you can like hold down the home screen. There's a plus in the top left. If you put a little widget of the number, the daily number that you have, your screen time onto the home screen, that was the thing that really like kicked off changing my relationship with it. Because I started thinking, geez, I've been working all day, but there's 5 hours on my phone. How does that make any sense? Because a lot of the work isn't on my phone. So yeah, once you have the awareness, I think it can motivate a bit of the change in behavior.
Yeah, and I think that it's important for people to realize that like everyone uses their devices and things differently. And
Yeah, of course.
when it comes to like social media platforms, like that's the big killer. Most people aren't in that career path where social media is required for work. But when it comes to, for me personally, I I I do social media, but I've spaced myself away from it to the point where I'm like, I don't need that many hours on that platform. I know certain things that I need to get done. So I've started like giving myself a list of things that need to be done on my social platforms and then take myself off. Because if
Nice.
I
Okay.
stay too long, it does pull me into everyone else's life. And I also learned that the amount of people I was following also impacted my perception of the world, because I think people forget that you're looking at thousands of people's profiles. Uh, Everyone's not always vacationing. Like everyone's not always having a good time. People are working just like everyone else. But when you scroll through social media, that's what everyone's posting. So it feels like you are the only one not vacationing. You're not it makes you feel like you're left out where everyone else is partying and you're just not having fun. And I realized that I was following too many accounts. Most of the people I didn't know personally, never really had a personal conversation with them, just saw them on social media and clicked follow. And like I removed all of that and kept it closer to like the people I feel like inspire me or close friends that I stay connected to and have a personal relationship. And it changed the way I was looking at social media. I didn't have as many like moments of like jealousy or just like feeling like I wasn't good enough or wasn't doing what I should be in life at this time. And now with my following that I'm in now, I'm navigating through, I'm one person and I can't fight every battle that exists. Like there's so many things going on in this world, and it is not my responsibility to know about all of them. It's my responsibility to, once I've been given knowledge, to respect that knowledge, but it is not my job to solve every world problem that exists out there. Like, I
Yeah,
have
that's
people
true.
from all over the world following me, and they're like, "Did you hear about this? What are you going to do about this?" And I'm like, I, I'm sorry that that is happening in your part of the world. If there's something that you can personally tell me that I can do to help, feel free to offer that advice and information. But I'm still just one person, and I've chosen parts of my life that I believe are worth fighting for. When it
Yeah.
comes to equality here in the United States, when it comes to my power of influence, I know my audience, and I have to be able to impact their knowledge and well-being. So I'm just like, I'm not going to waste a lot of energy screaming at a crowd that doesn't respect anything I say. I'm going to use my energy to educate myself better for the fights that I believe in. And I was like, I'm going to use my social platforms to make change, but I can't make change in every small little thing or big thing that's happening all over the world because there's just too much. And I think that that's one thing that social media has brought to us is too much information, and people just assume that everyone has to have an opinion, everyone has to know about everything. And unfortunately, there's just too much for that to be a thing. And we can't be mad at people for not having an opinion on something because they just don't have enough time in their day to add that to their plate and
Hmm.
do it in a way that it's healthy for them to process it in a daily basis.
Yeah, I think that's wonderful the way you've explained that, because in doing so, in being so aligned with your mission for equality in the US and that kind of thing, every single individual that you support through that, whether they're following you and learning from you or all the work you're doing, if you empower another individual to feel better in themselves, then they're enabled to actually open up and go into their calling and their what they can align with. So as long as you stay focused on your vision, then you're actually just empowering others to then potentially solve all these different things that we have coming up. So yeah, totally agree. Totally agree.
Yeah. I had someone reach out to me early on when I started my positive talks, and they did it in a way that was more attacking than like enlightening me about the content in the positive talks that I'd done so far. And I just reached back out and I was like, I would have appreciated a message that said, hey, like, I love your positive talks, but I feel like you aren't hitting this audience as well as you could. Would you be interested in doing a positive talk with these people that I think are great influencers that could really help you? But this person rather went through my posts and found things that they didn't like and just like blew me up with all the things that they hated about my profile, all the things that it lacked. And I was like, there's a way to communicate things that you think are lacking somewhere. Like in leadership, I literally train leadership. I am open minded to anything. As a leader, I know I have to be someone who is there for everyone. If someone's under me and I am a leader to them, it is my job to adjust myself as a leader to accommodate them as a person. It's not the other way around. If you're a leader, you know that. But there's definitely a good way about going about that conversation and a bad way. And I always tell people, like, I am wide open. Like, I love recommendations. I love talking to people of all different backgrounds. Like, I think there's power in knowledge and power in like opening yourself to new experiences and new people, because every new person brings a new key to unlock a part of myself. So like I will never turn
True.
anyone down. So I think it's just really important for people to realize that like we have so many opportunities to unlock different parts of ourselves, as well as like you said, like maybe for me as a person, my job is to empower other people, and that's where my passion is. Maybe someone I need to empower has the passion to help people internationally on a
Yeah.
different level that I don't have enough energy or knowledge to do myself. And like that, we can inspire change in a big way that, yes, I played that small opening key part at the beginning, but that person's success is theirs once they take it. And I think that that's important for people to realize, because in today's world, like the news is just like hitting us with stuff all over the world. And I'm like, I have no opinion on what's happening in the Middle East because I don't have the history, I don't have the current events, I don't have relationships that I'm close with over there. I don't know all the stuff that governments are talking about that citizens don't know about. I'm like, I can't form
Yeah.
an opinion. That's too much for me. I need a lot more information, and that's not my job, that's not my pay level, like it's just not me. And people are like, well, you're an influencer, you can make an impact. I'm like, I don't I can make impacts, but I can't do that type of impact there.
Yeah, I hear you. And it's one of those situations where you just can't spread yourself too thin. And if you try to do everything, then you just achieve very little because it'd be too many different things. And I think it's true what you're saying. Like, there's so much news and information in politics, like we were saying earlier, that's coming at us. And I think it's fantastic, like all the exposure of these things and giving an opportunity for people to consider this and feel like, yeah, I do need to care for this and that. Like, I love that. And I think it's what we need to do. But there is a certain point where we're taking on like a bit too many different things. And like our own mind is like, geez, like I've got so much to figure out and care for and stuff. And I think there's a part of it that's like, we need to care for everything outside of ourselves. But if we all individually really learn how to care for ourselves, we might collectively actually do a better job at what we're seeking to do rather than just like tons of information. What do I do about it? And getting into that kind of overwhelmed sort of state. There was one thing you mentioned in your previous words, which was, oh, that's good. And I saw it in the comments just then, was FOMO, that whole idea of watching the highlights and things like that. And that's something I really think we should consider how that impacts our heads, because I think a lot about FOMO and how that affects us, the idea of fear that we're missing out on something. And when you really think about those situations where you're experiencing FOMO, so like sitting on the sofa and you're scrolling around doing nothing with your time, and then you're seeing others doing something with their time, I think you're not necessarily fearing you're missing out on exactly what that person is doing. I just think it's recognition to yourself that you're doing very little with your experience while someone else is doing something that seems like significant or fun or social with theirs. And then that misalignment between us doing nothing and them doing something makes us feel uncomfortable. And I've had that loads of times. Like I'll sit on the sofa and I'll be scrolling, then I'll see like, oh, my friends are all at a nice pub in London. And I'll be like, oh, that's annoying. And then it can make you feel less good about yourself. And what I've started trying to do in those situations, when you're going into that state where you're thinking, I'm feeling a bit like jealous of their experience and my experience isn't as good, rather than scrolling for another 2 hours and thinking that about every single person that you scroll past, try and like use that as some kind of trigger. Like, okay, so evidently I want to be enjoying my experience more because I feel like an envy towards them. So what could I do right now? Could I go outside, go do some exercise, go and talk to someone, go and cook some food, something that gets you out of the task of scrolling around on your phone, so at least you can alleviate that difficulty. I think it can make a pretty big difference to what's going on in the head.
Yeah, I've told many people, I was like, yes, I understand that like you might work tomorrow and you can't just go to like the big city or go to the beach or go somewhere further away from your home. But it's like, hey, like, is there a recipe that you've been wanting to do?
Yeah.
Like know your time frames that you have available and fit things that you want to try out in life into those time frames. Like, hey, I've got 3 days off this week. Okay, what do I have that can fit into a 3 day period, and put it there and enjoy that. And don't compare it to other people's 3 days because you'll get into that trap as well. But like, just realize that you do have free time to try different things. And I think the more things that you just do that are new and different, like if you can get into a habit of like, I want to do 3 new things a week, like whatever they may be, just try something new and you'll realize how you start like having a life where now you can go to work and be like, oh my God, I tried this new recipe last night. And for me, I would be like, and I burnt it and it was horrible. But for other people that can cook, they would probably be like, it was an amazing recipe. And then it's something to talk about. And people don't realize that their conversations get stale. And then you fall into this negative talk where you're talking about other people instead of ideas and beautiful things you should be talking about, because you don't have enough new inputs coming in for you to actually talk about inspiring things. Whereas like you sit around people that are just like you gravitate towards, or at least I do. I hear them talking about all these beautiful things that they're doing and trying, and none of them are that hard. None of them take that much
Mm,
time. It's just, hey, I went to a new trail to run today and I saw this like beautiful lake. There's a story for you to tell. Like there
for
are
sure.
endless things for you to explore, and that will give you something to one, learn about the world and yourself, and two, to share with the world. Because I think a lot of us just want to share, and I think that social media has gotten us to the point where we're not sharing to like share the experience, we're sharing to get validated, and I think that
Yeah,
that's
for
a little bit
sure.
of a difference there.
I agree. And that idea of novelty and finding new things, I think, is absolutely spot on because we as humans instinctively desire novelty and desire new things so much. That's how we went from wandering around in tribal communities and jungles to now building this crazy thing that we've been able to build because we're just seeking for more and seeking for new. And that's in all of us, that desire for new things. But I think what's difficult is so much of that desire that's in us is kind of semi fulfilled by seeing new things on the internet and scrolling through feeds and seeing people doing different stuff. And it's kind of satisfying our desire for novelty, but leading us not in some really big, I feel so fulfilled. And when you do something like, as you say, as simple as creating a new recipe or going on a new walk and seeing some kind of natural setting, it is that novelty that we're instinctively seeking. And the more you connect with that, what a human would instinctively wants to do, not just this modern idea of flicking around and seeing what everyone else is doing, it's worth our time. It's very much worth our time.
Most definitely. And I see that we have hit the hour mark. So I just want to take this time to say thank you so much for coming on and doing this.
I've
Absolutely
loved it.
love having the conversation with you. I knew it would be good just because after all your clubhouse rooms, I knew that you have a lot of amazing perspectives. And hopefully we can do another one here soon and see where things have gone. I know that the world is changing quickly with this pandemic. Like, we never know where we're going to end up in a month or two. But
True.
I definitely would love to stay connected and see where you're going in life with everything that you're doing.
Wonderful. I've loved it as well, my friend, and have a huge amount of respect for everything that you're doing in the world. And I'm grateful that you chose to bring me into one of your conversations.
Awesome. And thank you so much. And definitely loving seeing what you're doing. I'm excited to see where you go with everything. I think that you're making a huge change just by like seeing and hearing the way people interacted with you on Clubhouse. Like, I think that you're doing amazing things with what you've got there.
One, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that massively. And yeah, thanks for having me on. And thanks everyone for joining. I've seen some of these words coming past, so I look forward to having a flick through that later on.
Awesome. Well, you have a good night, and I will try to adventure out into the rest of my day here.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
Bye.